everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Bibbs and Alonso. Kim could not join us today, but she promises she'll be back for more of these later. We're talking about season 2 of Sense8, episodes 2 through 5.
The Christmas episode that they released earlier this year was, or like I guess late last year. Yeah. That's technically the first episode of the season.
Right. So if you're keeping score at home, these are episodes 2 through 5, digging into the new season. So Whispers is obviously going to be very, very important this year.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see a character who is sort of, I don't know, shrouded in mystery and then become more, we delve into them more consistently, like Benjamin Linus in Lost, where he was really great as an enigma, and then he was still interesting as we found out more about him, and then after a while we realized you don't know who the hell this person is. I don't get the sense from here, but I do think that's the danger of it.
Sure.
Is that the power Whispers had as this vague malevolent force might change, and for a bit there in these first 5 episodes, 4 that we're reviewing, but 5. I thought maybe we were going to do a reversal and we're going to see that Whispers, though he may have made some horrible moral choices, may not be such a terrible person. Maybe he's doing what he thinks is right, and that we'll have to have that conversation. Right. But then he stabbed the guy in the neck, so I don't know.
I mean, and I think still he's probably the kind of character that can justify his choices and that thinks that he is building toward, that he'd look at the stabbing in the neck as breaking a few eggs to whatever omelet he has in mind. But still, I think that it's interesting to see him as a character who at first seems unbeatable, and then he's beatable, and then he's unbeatable. So so they're changing the stakes there, and so that's interesting. That's
really
drama.
Great. That's a fantastic.
Because all one or all the other is not interesting.
I was really worried, like for a while, like at the end of that, and it's great drama. At the end of the last season, I'm like, Jesus, how are they going to get out of this? Yeah. Everyone's kind of like. There's a lot of people who were basically fine at the end of last season, but the people who are screwed were really screwed. Yeah. And here, we're finding a way, even in the first half of the season, to move the pieces around the chessboard, unscrew people, but still keep them in an interesting way. We had a fantastic jailbreak episode.
Yes.
With one of the coolest fight scenes. I have never seen a fight scene with someone with a noose around their neck the whole time doing that level of martial arts choreography. I don't think I've seen that.
I want to say that I have, and I can't remember where, but I
feel like it's probably
maybe not that level, but I have seen a noose.
Maybe in like Fists and Guts or some other Gordon Liu movie I'm not thinking of, but like I can't think of it. Certainly it's not a cliche.
But very well done,
really cool.
whether it's new or not.
So that was fantastic. And then going back to the Whispers angle, it seems like they did a really good job of making it seem like everyone's really screwed over by the situation, and then finding out that not in some completely bullshitty way, not in some like, oh, this is a really elaborate plan that no one's ever gonna buy. It's just they were playing the long con, they were waiting for their moment, and the moment came, and they nailed it. And they managed to get the better of him and change their situation. And what I'm loving about halfway through this season, or almost halfway through this season, we're getting to that point at the end of the first Matrix where Neo, and again, it's the Wachowskis, where Neo says, I'm gonna show everybody. Like, this is like a big conspiracy thing, and that's your power, is that no one knows about it. We're gonna be able to like sort of spread this out, and we're gonna reach other clusters and have a huge rave where we're suddenly gonna activate a former Doctor Who. And that is really great. And I think that is breaking the rules of this kind of genre storytelling where you just have to keep the secret. You have to keep the secret. Harry Potter can never let the whole world know that there are wizards. You have to keep the secret.
No one can know that my mother is a car.
No one can know my mother is a car. Good cancel too soon reference. But here it seems like they're able to break that. There's not this sort of rigid confine of specific genre, and we could do anything.
I do find myself sometimes questioning what are the rules here again?
Yeah.
Like for example, when there's after the neck stabbing, when they're all fleeing the museum, the Rijksmuseum in Holland, and the other Sense8s are there, and they're not just like telling the guy what to say or how to, or like being his kung fu proxy, but they're physically there. They're distracting the cops.
No, because it wasn't just him. It was the DJ was there as well.
No, but Riley's there, but also Leto, and I'm like, wait, but y'all aren't.
Leto was Riley at that moment. Riley was
physically with him. Oh, okay, all right. Then that makes sense.
That's one of the dangers of the show, is that it can be a little confusing when they're all together and you're trying to remember
who's physically there and who's just mentally there.
Someone needs to, and it would be me if I had the time. I promise you this, but someone needs to do a definitive ranking of every montage in Sense8. Like all 200 montages that they've done over like 16 episodes. My God.
That's a list waiting to happen.
That's a huge thing, because practically every scene is this really ambitious film school montage. And what's really cool is that they're finding consistently new ways to do that, and new ideas to juxtapose, like the riots,
the water riot and the religious riot, and the Neats on the motorcycle. Yeah,
like different levels of crisis at different moments, and they interact so well, so effectively.
So there's so much of a pivot going on. So the whole jailbreak story with Soon has been really interesting, especially the revelation that the cop is that guy that she beat in the kung fu tournament.
And he's cool, like
the karate tournament, whatever.
There's this bit on the roof where it's just he's so comfortable with his gunplay in a way that even good actors sometimes aren't. That I really want to see that guy star in an action movie now. Like I really do. Like I'm not familiar with that actor. I need to look up that actor. He's
maybe he's got action movies already.
I don't know. He's fantastic. Like the whole cast is fantastic.
Oh, totally.
I'm surprised at how quickly. I mean, granted, it was a few months ago they were introduced. I'm used to the new cafes.
Yes.
That really bothered me at first. I was like, oh, damn, really? That sucks.
We had the Christmas special to work through that, and now it's just like he's the guy. I just accept him.
He's quite good.
Yeah, he's very good.
I'm liking this storyline as well. Cafius is on a path that I did not expect.
Totally, yeah. The idea of him running for office is interesting, and it raises a lot of ideas of like, what would a politician who is in a cluster be like, and act like, and think like?
And it's also, because again, you want your politicians to be a leader of the people, and here's someone who is entirely worldly in a literal sense.
Sure.
And yet, they're also positioning at the same time one of the other people in the cluster to be involved in at least potentially a corrupt political family.
Right.
That's going to be a great juxtaposition. I can't wait to see where that goes.
Yeah, they're laying lots of little plots here. I mean, like with the Indian drug company that is just rushing stuff through without really checking it, and again, I've said this before, that this show does hacking better than anybody. Because most movies, I mean, like as recently as The Fate of the Furious, hacking in movies is But like here, like they're genuinely, they don't just do that, and you get the impression of what they're hacking and why, and what information they're gleaning from it, and how to use it. That whole thing where they're
No, you're fine.
The whole thing with when he's on the phone with Whispers, and Whispers is in the room with Kroom. Is that the guy's name?
Something like that. Yeah.
And they know about the mistress, they know about the private phone number, like all this stuff. It's like, okay, yes, that's how hacking works.
Yeah, you don't just like tippity tap on a computer. It actually helps to know the people and everything. That's how sneakers work. That's the best hacking movie ever.
Yeah, and I'm sure that for genuine hackers, I'm sure they watch this and go, oh God, that's bullshit. And it probably is, but I'm just saying dramatically, this is how hacking should work.
Pretty much any job, if you know the job real well, and that job is dramatized at an even semi-regular level, you get tired of it. I grew up in a family of teachers, so every time I saw a movie about Dangerous Minds is such bullshit.
Oh yeah,
like I know it's based on a true story. The way that they dramatize it is bullshit.
Yeah, no, family of doctors, same thing. Like, no, you wouldn't do that.
You'd never do that. And that's fine. And it's okay if you're outside of it, but when you're inside of it, whatever. But like, you're right about the hacking. And I think the other thing people don't get about hacking is that, and that Sense8 does so well, the tippity tapping is nothing. It's death. You can do the hackers thing all you want, where you spin the camera around and you do a bunch of cool. It looks okay, but it's
screen full of like little,
gets real old real fast.
And,
what they have is multiple people in a room talking to each other. The typing is just the thing that they're doing with their hands. What's fun is that they're talking to each other.
Yes.
That's what's so great. And I gotta tell you, I kind of love this, what I assume is a somewhat heightened version of Anonymous that we're introduced to.
Oh, well.
The fantasy of what Anonymous would be.
Sure, yeah, the best version. We should point out that this episode was directed by James McTeague, who directed the V for Vendetta movie for the Wachowskis.
Worked on
so
it as well,
the Guy Fawkes mask is a little like, okay, we get it, especially when the guy has that sentence with all the words that start with V in it.
I like that there was an app for that, though.
Yeah, that's true. But still, it's like, okay, that's calm down, Wachowskis. We get the joke.
But here's the irony: is that even though V for Vendetta,
that does tie in for actual Anonymous. You're right.
That's right. Well, the irony is that V for Vendetta, which is based on a brilliant comic book, and was adapted. Faithfully in terms of plot, but thematically and philosophically, like the exact opposite of what the book was supposed to represent. It had that impact. Like, the people wear those masks because of the movie. You have to sort of give them a little credit for it. And they're owning it.
It is an acknowledgement of like, we sort of shaped this thing in the culture, but okay, now that you've done it, they don't need to do it again.
A little self-serving. I'll grant you it's a little self-serving. But yeah, so.
Oh, and we haven't talked about other cluster.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, I don't know. I guess I assumed there were others, but I don't know why it didn't occur to me that that's the natural evolution of this. Is to meet another cluster, and is it going to be like the show isn't tried enough to just have the evil cluster.
Of course, but again, it's a whole new set of rules. Like, okay, so if Wolfgang and whatever her name is, Lena,
something like that.
If they can meet in each other's brains now, also, then does that exponentially mean like all of her cluster can meet with any of all their cluster?
Theoretically, like they've been able to experience, the dreams and the minds of the cluster that birthed their cluster, and if that's the case, and
that's true. Yeah.
And if you're going by that mentality, then theoretically, it's just genetics. Everyone came off of the same cluster at some point.
Sure.
So they all have to have this potential. And again, we had that bit where I think Sylvester McCoy pops up in the last episode that we saw at the rave, and he has this like little freak out. It's really funny. And I don't know if he didn't realize he was in a cluster or not, but like, yeah, you can have this impact and you can reach out to people, and there's so many different sort of possibilities with that, and that to expand on the scope of what is already the most globally minded television series I've ever seen that wasn't a news program or National Geographic.
Right. Oh no, yeah, no. I still the kudos to them for like, even though was everything in English in season 1?
Pretty much.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was new or not, but yeah. Despite that, yeah, the fact they film in Africa, they film in Korea, like this is like a really, you're right. It is a global show, and the whole thing with the new cluster seems to be like we're moving a little bit into X-Men territory.
Well, that's always a little bit in the premise,
right? But I mean, this notion of you have the like, do we keep ourselves a secret or not? Do we try and take over the rest of humanity because we're better than them or not? Like
I don't know if we're going to go that far. It'd be interesting to see if we do, because again, this is a show that thinks real big, and I think big philosophically, and I think that's one of the reasons. I think this might be a lesson that the Wachowskis learned from The Matrix, in that the first Matrix it's a great movie. Yeah. It's a little derivative of certain like anime and comics, but like it has big ideas and it connected to people on a really simple human level. The idea that our reality is bullshit, that's an idea that we've all toyed with at one point or another. In the sequels, as that expanded, they moved further and further away from the human nugget at the beginning of that's sort of realizing that everything around you shouldn't be this way, and that maybe we could live outside of this reality and bend the reality to be the way we want it to be. There's a real base primal thing there, and they just got really swept up in mythology, and the story just kept getting less and less relatable, even if you think it's interesting. I'm seeing them fight that here. I'm seeing them actually try to keep this really human, really inspiring, and I keep feeling inspired by this television. I'm starting to catch on to the show's tricks. The tricks are so good, they keep working.
Sure.
Their montages are so effective at bringing the world together and uniting us in common experiences, regardless of wildly disparate cultures, countries, political climates, everything. It's beautiful.
You're right, and it is, I think, it is character first. I mean, we ended at the end of episode 5, which is basically everyone having that moment of reckoning of like, I have to be braver. I have to have more courage in my life, and it's only going to be better for me. And and each of those characters has a different way in which that manifests.
Yeah.
Whether it's Leto going to do the gay pride parade in Sao Paulo, whether it's Wolfgang standing up to this guy who's trying to like take out erase the kingpins of the Berlin mob or whatever. So it's like, yes, you're right. They're not going down these rabbit holes of like of thinky thinks and losing the story in there. They are still deepening the world in which they live in and what we know about these things. I mean, obviously we're learning things about Angelica that we didn't know before, and her loyalties and allies. But yeah, ultimately it is about these 8 characters, and these are still 8 fascinating characters. Yeah. Another rule thing that I get a little fuzzy on, and again, I didn't rewatch season 1.
Neither did I.
Why is it that Riley is on the run, but Leto can still go to premieres?
Well, they had kidnapped Riley.
Right, I know, but
so they knew about Riley.
Sure, but I mean, at this point, it seems like they would know all 8 of the cluster.
I know, I'm a little hazy about that, because I thought if Whispers saw, like he'd have to keep his eyes closed the whole time. Yeah. I think that might be getting a little hazy on that, or maybe the mechanics are highly specific and we missed it.
Gotcha.
I don't recall him making eye contact with any of the other members of his cluster, and like you can know that Whispers heard them around.
Oh, that's true.
So that might be
okay, so maybe he's not completely, all right.
But I also like, and we talk about this show sort of expanding on our own on an individual level, looking at it from a global world, global economy, global culture, that it also works the other way around. And globalism can affect the individual. I think my favorite moment so far in the new season is actually when Leto is confronted by not a very nice interviewer on a red carpet. I've done a lot of red carpets. That woman sucks.
Yeah, that's not where the hard questions come.
That's
usually.
no. That is a bad place for it. She is really pushing, but she asks the hard questions. And meanwhile, Cafés also thinks he's being interviewed for a puff piece on some morning show, and he's happy to do it. And then the tough questions come, and everyone around the world is able to, because they're sensitive and because they care about each other and because they're empathetic, able to sort of together on a global level
formulate the answer.
If you prick me, do I not bleed? It's basically that speech, but it's more meaningful because it's literally everybody on the planet saying it.
Yeah,
it's so fantastic.
I mean, really, the deep cut of this show is that everybody in the world is connected, and that what happens, a water crisis in Nairobi, it does matter to you, even if you live in Mumbai or in Chicago or in San Francisco or in Reykjavik, whatever.
Yeah.
And so there is, and I think certainly at a time now where so many governments are leaning towards this insane form of 1930s nationalism, it's nice to have somebody saying, no, we are a global community, we are interconnected.
Someone was giving a commentary. I'm trying to remember, it might have been Al Jazeera, but they were talking about how democracy is the fundamental premise that every individual has an equal right to a voice, to their life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. There is no conceivable reason why that would stop at your border.
Sure.
If you believe in democracy, then you believe that every human being has that right.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we're starting to see a little bit more of in our fiction, in our art, in our philosophy, in our media. The internet has broken down a lot of these walls. And I think we're starting to see people sort of fight tooth and nail to keep the walls up because that's where we feel secure, and then build more.
Yeah.
Like people's like, oh, why do you get political? This is a political show.
Well, all art is political, but this show is very political.
Super political. This show is really political. American Gods is really political by its construct. Art should challenge us and should inspire us to make our lives better. The best art does this.
Yeah.
And I think Sense8 is more so than any other show. And I can't even think of another example of a show that does it this well. Just blowing my mind on a consistent level in terms of how much better we can be, an individual level, on a cultural level, on a national level, on an international level, and how attainable it could be. John Waters had a bit where he said, if you go over to someone's house and they don't own any books, don't fuck them.
Yes.
I was thinking about this when I was watching Sense8. If you know someone who doesn't like Sense8, don't fuck them. That's my review of Sense8. Don't fuck them.
I believe in the cultural litmus test. So sure,
we all have that thing. Like, oh, you don't like the Step Up movies? This date is over. Like, that's it for me.
Okay,
but
that's maybe not. But I hear you. I totally hear you.
But Sense8 is a beautiful piece of storytelling, and even if maybe you prefer other types of media, maybe like, oh, I wish there was more action in it. There's so much in here for literally everybody, and that's the point, and it does it so well. And I really hope it keeps this up for the second half of the season, because again, the show is so precarious.
Yes.
The fact that they've been able to balance it for this long is a miracle.
True.
And I wait with horrified, bated breath for them to fuck it up.
And you never know with the Wachowskis. You never know.
They have such wonderful ideas, but again, I think sometimes their problem is trying to crunch it all down into a movie. Like Jupiter Ascending has a lot of cool ideas in it. I actually really like that movie, but it's a mess because it's shoved all in together and it has to kind of fit as this one unit. If that was a show, it would be fantastic.
They kind of make every movie like it's their last. Like if not now, when? I got to get it all in there, and so
this is the perfect medium for them. This is the perfect material for them.
Yes,
credit was
they get to spread out this kind of time.
And real fast before we head out, we keep crediting the Wachowskis, and we should. They're brilliant.
J. Michael Straczynski
doing a great job. I'm not always a fan of everything he's done, but he is also you can see his fingerprints all over this. This is a very idea-driven show, and his ideas. You look at this is very Rising Stars. Like I see his other material here. He's also doing a bang-up job here, and I just want to make sure he gets credit too, because damn.
And John Toll, who does a lot of the cinematography. God, this show looks good.
How did they get John Toll for an entire series like this? It's so I'm sure it's a great material, and he was happy to do it. But John Toll is just one of the great cinematographers, and he's thank you.
So all right, we have 8 more. Say how many?
Around there. 8 more? We'll do like 2 more.
We have a couple more of these to go. So
we're going to do as quick as we can.
We hope you'll come back. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.